It sounds like someone is talking to you, right? And so what that means is there's three things that you're going to be looking for in fluent reading. One is accuracy. Are they reading the words correctly? That's really important. In some ways, it doesn't matter what you sound like if you're reading all the words wrong, right? So accuracy, are you reading the words correctly? Expression. This is not in the sense of like, I want you to be a storyteller and create suspense while you're reading and have different voices. Okay, that's above and beyond the call of duty, by all means, if you can do that. But this is like, you know, if there's a question, do you raise your voice up for the question? If you're saying like, oh no, stop, be careful, like, that's not gonna work, you know what I'm saying? So like, at least with punctuation marks, do you raise and change your voice to reflect punctuation marks? Other features like bold print, you know, sometimes is there for a reason. So basic kind of conversational-like sounding. And then speed. Now you already, from the way I talk, you can tell that I'm a fast talker, right? But you're looking for something that sounds a reasonable conversation speed. Either way, if you read too fast, that's a problem. If you read too slow, that's a problem, right? And all of these issues, the reason why we care, because ultimately you might be thinking, who cares what they sound like, as long as they're reading, right? And yes, it's true. But what we know is that if you struggle usually in any of these areas, it's going to affect your comprehension. So if you're a really slow reader, chances are you don't comprehend what you're reading. Or if you sound like a robot when you read, you've seen that, like, or it's just da, 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 and like they run through periods, they run through punctuation marks. Chances are you're not comprehending, right? There's always that one fluke, that one kid that sounds terrible when they're reading, and you ask them, what's the story about? And they can tell you every detail. Okay, well then that kid, you work on fluency just to help them kind of build stamina and speed, but it's not a huge concern. But that's an unusual scenario. I'm not gonna lie to you. So what can you do in terms of fluency? Our first activity is called timed repeated reading. And what you're doing is, this is ideal for students who read accurately, right? So they're reading the words correctly, but they read really slowly. And expression isn't so much of an issue here, but they just read really slowly. And so what you're going to do is you're going to choose a passage from a book. Poems are great for this, rhymes, songs, anything like that would work. But you're looking for something that's about 100 to 150 words usually, not something that's too long. Reason being is if you're a struggling reader and I say, can you read this? That's not so bad, right? But if I say, here, read, this, not too bad either, but this has a lot more text, oh, that's overwhelming to me, right? So a short passage is sometimes not that overwhelming, it works. You're gonna say to the child, I want you to do your best reading, right? Go ahead and read this out loud with expression at a good, even pace. You're not encouraging them to read as fast as they can, or, you just normal reading, good, even pace, go ahead and read it. You're gonna time the child. When you say like start, the child starts reading. While they're reading, you're keeping a record of how many mistakes they make, right? After about a minute, you can either time the entire reading and see how long it takes, or time them for a minute and see how many words they read for a minute. It's really your choice. But irrelevant of which way you choose, you're gonna subtract the number of errors they make. Because you wanna know how many words did you read correctly in 1 minute, or how many words did you read correctly in however long it took you to read this passage. Does that make sense? You're gonna make a record of it. You're gonna write it down somewhere. And so what you're gonna do, as implied by the name, is the child is gonna have to read the passage over and over and over and over again, right? The idea being that eventually, the more they read it, they're gonna get better with their time. Now, they're not gonna necessarily read it all like 5 times in a row with you. Like you read it the first time today, before you leave, you might read it again, because it's a short passage, it shouldn't take you that long to read it. Take it home. Read it to whoever is willing to listen to you read, right? Read it to everybody. The next time you see them at your next session, you ask them to read the passage again, right? And what you hope is that they have gotten faster because they've they've been working on it. You need to set reasonable goals, right? Especially like if I see you on Monday and Wednesday, you're probably not gonna get that much faster, right? So usually you want about a week's worth of time in between. And what you're looking for are improvements of anywhere from 2, 3 words, maybe 5 words of increase in speed. You're not gonna go from you were reading at 30 words a minute to now you're at 60, woohoo, 1 week. That's not gonna happen. Small incremental changes. What is ultimately happening in these scenarios is the child is memorizing the passage, right? And you might be like, well, what's the point there? Like, that's not reading. But guess what? If they memorize those words and those 150 words, that's a good thing, because when they see them again in a different passage, they'll be able to read them and identify them quicker, right? So it's not a bad thing necessarily that they've memorized those words.
For more information on fluency, visit tutoring.uncc.edu for resources, including the Tutoring Handbook. This video was developed by the Center for Adolescent Literacies at UNC Charlotte with support from United Way of Central Carolinas.